to Peter Stefanovic, who is near Taree. Peter, as we discussed earlier, there's calm, more calm in that area, but certainly no complacency.
Just drove a short while up the road from where we spoke to you last time, Kieran, about half an hour ago. And this is the sort of situation that you're seeing here. Because firefighters are so stretched, their resources are so stretched, you're having the locals who've got to pitch in and do their bit. This is a gentleman that we just drove past a short time ago because flames have taken off. And you can see here that trees have been fully engulfed by flames. They're spreading up this vegetation and moving towards other homes here to the left-hand side of the road. So this is just an example of how things can change. And now you've got the embers that are flying through the air as well. And just in here, that's what I was talking about, that tree that's been fully engulfed by flames, it's circling, and that's just going to stay on fire for a while. And so here you go. All the neighbours are having to pitch in and do their bit with whatever water that they have got. So while conditions are said to be easing, as we know, Kieran, this is what can happen. The sudden change of wind, a sudden gust of wind, can cause a flame to burr up and fire again. And there are properties around here. We travelled a short while up the road a few minutes ago and noticed about 4 or 5 properties that had been completely gutted, completely burnt. There was no one around, so we can only assume that that whoever might have owned those properties have just given up and let it go, because that's the feeling around here at the moment anyway. When the fire gets too close, you can tend to feel a bit helpless, especially when the fires are as brutal and damaging as they are.
Indeed, and you could see Mark Jessup, your cameraman there, giving us a good sense of how everyone's just chipping in there, Pete, and this gentleman with that fire just popping up, and as you say, you can see how quickly that can be whipped up with any sort of wind at all, how dense it is. And you and I have spoken about the vegetation on the ground. It is so thick, so no wonder with all that fuel, it's almost inevitable, isn't it? You think about those people like Carol you spoke to earlier in that beautiful little township. Yesterday, I just wondered, was there any warning? I mean, they live there, obviously love that part of the world, understandably, normally an idyllic place, but yesterday it was hell.
Yeah, there actually is. There's no warning that comes in place. Well, there is a warning about, but I guess a lot of people can feel like it's not going to affect them, you know, and then all of a sudden there's that change of wind, and all of a sudden you've got a fire that might be here on the side of a road. It catches fire with a tree, and that leads to a tree falling, and then the fire, you know, ends up going further up the hill and then sort of starts marching towards another property. That's how it happens, just behind you to the left here, Mark.
Oh, you can't, buddy. You can't, matey.
Excuse me, mate. So this is the sort of desperation that's going on at the moment here, Kieran, too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah.
And indeed, and this is one man with a bit of water that he's brought there. It's no fire tanker. It's no RFS volunteer. Let's hope there's other support getting in there, Pete. I'd probably suggest that you and Mark should make haste as well, get out of them, because this looks like it could easily flare up now.
It jumped up quick.
Yeah. Have you seen much of this, mate?
Yep.
I live down in the gully. Yeah, it's pretty full on. It was a pretty big inferno.
Yeah. How bad's it been the last couple of days?
Wild. Absolutely wild.
I feel like a bit of an idiot not doing anything and just watching you, mate, as well. So keep on going, mate. I'm really sorry, but this really shows. This is an example, Kieran, of what's kind of going on at the moment, and. Obviously, the firefighters are so stretched, their resources are so stretched, they can't be everywhere at any given time. And now over here, Mark, you can see it's taken hold again through that bushland.
Well, as he goes
I'm not sure if there's another property on the other side of that, but there are properties around.
And Pete, as he goes to deal with that small flare-up near the car, as you say, loses a bit of control of that fire there. And unless there are RFS trucks and support nearby, it's hard to see how that extinguishes itself.
Well, that's right, yeah, and the firefighters, they've got to prioritise. Despite all of the help that's come across, you know, from Victoria, there's something in the way of 3,000 firefighters who've been here battling blazes, but they're spread throughout New South Wales, because you've got 80 odd fires that are burning. Well, they're not at emergency level. I mean, it all seems like an emergency to me, this kind of stuff, when it's so close to properties. But, you know, the firefighters, they've got to prioritise and get to where areas are, you know, are built up and the fires are even, you know, much bigger than this. And I was chatting to a bloke up the road a short time ago as well, and he was sort of at a loss of what to do. He didn't know what to do. All he had to do was try and save his own property. But how do you do that when you're dealing with this kind of stuff, when you've got the winds that are circling and they're going any which way, and all you can do is maybe just put a hose on it and see what happens and hope for the best.
So, Pete, before you go, we'll let you go, but just tell us exactly where are you again? You're not far from Taree, but geographically, how far away from that town?
So we're about 30 kilometres northwest of Taree at the moment. This is a place that was badly affected by the fires, those fast-moving fires that came through yesterday afternoon. We spoke to Carol Saul a short time ago, and she was able to protect her home. She was able to save it. Her husband was able to save it as well. But she said that she was a lucky one because others haven't been so lucky, and so she said, you know, go and check out her neighbours up the road because they weren't lucky. So we drove up there and had a look at some properties, and they were completely gutted. So that's the problem around here. You know, you're surrounded by such dense bushland. As soon as a fire takes hold, there's not a great deal you can do. You know, it's just it's so parched. The ground is so parched. There's loose vegetation everywhere. It's almost like the trees are and the vegetation's ready to go. And sure enough, around here it is.